I'm Eric Rosales. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly. A busy start to the week for Pope Leo XIV. The appointments and milestones we're following today. Holding the line, President Donald Trump speaks out on the war in Ukraine as he pushes for peace in the region. Tragedy in England. Authorities investigate the cause of a collision that left dozens injured in Liverpool. Plus, disturbing trend. A new report sheds light on the killing of Christians in Nigeria. These stories and much more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thanks for being with us on the feast day of St. Augustine of Canterbury. Our top story tonight. President Donald Trump continues his effort to end the war in Ukraine, but with more Russian bombardments. President Trump rips into Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying, quote, he's playing with fire. Trump adds if it weren't for him, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. For the very latest on the matter, let's turn to White House correspondent Owen Jensen. Owen.
Eric, President Donald Trump says he's always had a very good relationship with Vladimir Putin, but now, more than 3 years into the war, whether that relationship can help expedite peace in Ukraine remains a big unknown.
A Russian bombing campaign that escalated in recent days slowed overnight. Between Friday and Sunday, Russia launched about 900 drones at Ukraine. On Truth Social, President Donald Trump unleashing this criticism of Putin, saying, something has happened to him. He has gone absolutely crazy. He is needlessly killing a lot of people, and I'm not just talking about soldiers. That comment brought a sharp Kremlin response, criticizing what it called emotional reactions to events. Over the weekend, President Trump, who has threatened massive sanctions, telling reporters,
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him. But he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay?
The U.S. says Putin has not yet delivered a promised memorandum that the Russian leader told President Trump would outline the framework for a possible peace agreement. At the U.S. State Department today, this update on efforts to secure peace.
We continue to support direct talks between Russia and Ukraine. The President supports any mechanism that leads to a just, durable, and lasting peace. Any mechanism.
Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine swap hundreds of POWs, a rare moment of cooperation. The POW release amidst accusations Russia is brutalizing captured soldiers. More than 200 Ukrainian POWs have died while imprisoned.
Present all.
And at the Pentagon today, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth welcoming his Polish counterpart. Poland borders Ukraine. Hegseth calling the relationship between Poland and the U.S. rock solid.
President Trump also sends his regards and appreciation for all Polish leadership and the Polish people do. A model ally for the United States there on the eastern flank of NATO.
Also tonight, the U.S. says it was ready to have peace negotiations held at the Vatican, but Russia said no to that. The next venue could be Geneva, and Turkey says it's ready to hold another round of peace negotiations. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you so much, Owen. For more on the Russia-Ukraine war, I want to bring in Philip Wachelinski, the director of the Foreign Policy Research Institute Center for the Study of Intelligence and Non-Traditional Warfare. Philip, thanks for joining us. As we know, the Trump administration has repeatedly threatened to walk away if there's no progress of this peace deal. What do you make of it?
I believe that if the administration decided to walk away from attempts to start negotiations between the two parties, this would merely return us to the status quo of a few months ago. I believe it's very unlikely that negotiations will end this war anytime soon because Ukraine and Russia have war aims that can only be achieved by force of arms and not by compromise. Russia wants to destroy Ukraine's national identity, and Ukraine is fighting to affirm its national identity as a distinct people separate from Russia and capable of making its own way in the world independent of what the Kremlin wants. There's no bridging this gap with a clever peace plan. There may be a break in the fighting, if possible in the future, due to mutual exhaustion. But until the war aims of one or the other parties changes, conflict between the two will be the norm. The key question is going to be is if the U.S. stops trying to arrange peace negotiations, will its current policies stay in place? Meaning, will the administration continue to arm Ukraine while sanctioning Russia to weaken its ability to wage war?
Now, you've written that the war between Russia and Ukraine is not over territory. Then what exactly is it about?
Well, as I mentioned, it's about national identity. Putin believes that Ukrainians are Russians. The Ukrainians are saying that no, they are distinct people and that they wish to have an independent path. And that path is to the West, towards the European Union, towards NATO maybe in the future, but certainly not towards Moscow, which they've been subservient to for centuries.
Now, would a U.S. suspension of military support be a fatal blow for Ukraine?
I believe it would be extremely harmful, but it may not be fatal. U.S. military aid is very important, but as the war has evolved, so has Ukraine's ability to defend itself. Today, 80% of the casualties on both sides are caused by drones, and Ukraine has created a domestic industry that this year will produce over 1 million of those devices. Where U.S. military support is most important is in air defense. Russia's strategy, like it was in Chechnya and in Syria and in Afghanistan during the days of the old Soviet Union, targets the civilian population to end their resistance to Moscow's demands. Now, Russia, with the aid of Iran and North Korea, produces a large number of drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles, which nightly target Ukraine's cities. The most important thing the United States can do is to provide the air defense resources and intelligence early warning to protect Ukraine's cities, energy infrastructure, and civilians from being attacked by Russia.
Philip, let's talk a little bit about sanctions a little bit. Several media outlets are reporting that the White House is weighing its options on possibly bringing sanctions to the table. Is that enough?
I think the best way the administration can increase pressure on Moscow to end the war is to undermine its economic ability to wage it. It can do so by joining some recent European initiatives to stop the trade of Russian oil via the so-called ghost tankers, and by sanctioning countries that buy Russian oil. Europe has almost ended its reliance on Russian natural gas purchases, and China and India are very reluctant to face secondary sanctions that the U.S. could impose on them if they buy Russian oil. With falling oil prices and the Russian government's budget reliance on energy revenues, this is probably the quickest and most effective way to weaken Russia's ability to wage war, because it would threaten something that Putin holds most dear: political economic stability at home, and therefore his ability to stay in power.
All right. Well, Philip Vasilevsky, thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to leave it right there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, reaction continues to pour in after dozens were injured when a car plowed into a large crowd of soccer fans in Liverpool, England. Following the terrible events, UK's Prime Minister says his country stands with the people of Liverpool.
Liverpool stands together and the whole country stands with Liverpool. I'd like to thank the first responders who did a fantastic job last night and continue to do so. There's now an ongoing investigation. I'm being kept updated, talking frequently to the Mayor, Steve Rotherham. But as I say, my thoughts and the thoughts of the whole country will be with everybody in Liverpool today.
A 53-year-old suspect was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder as well as being under the influence of drugs. The driver managed around roadblocks by following an ambulance that was rushing through the streets. Now, police say right now the incident is not believed to be terrorism. Now to the Middle East, where it's been reported an Israeli tank fired into a giant crowd trying to reach a new aid distribution center in Gaza. The violence comes on the second day of operations by the U.S.-backed group taking over food distribution in the region. The Gaza humanitarian crisis has worsened. An Israeli blockade pushed the area to the brink of famine. Catholic Relief Services is demanding that the aid reach the Palestinians with ease and also wants to learn more about the U.S. operation. The agency says in part, quote, "We advocate for unimpeded humanitarian access and entry of humanitarian supplies at scale. CRS is committed to our operational independence, to neutrality, and impartiality and to the safety and dignity of those we serve. A controversial bill has passed a major hurdle in the French Parliament today. Lawmakers in the lower house approved an assisted dying bill. The bill allows adults to seek medically assisted death if their condition is terminal. Catholic bishops in the country have strongly opposed the bill. It now goes to the Senate for full debate. Pope Leo XIV has now officially assumed his role as Bishop of Rome, taking possession of the Lateran Basilica on Sunday. He also had a number of important meetings. EWTN Vatican journalist Valentina Di Donato has more.
Cristiano con voi.
With you I'm Christian, and for you, Bishop, as St. Augustine would say.
Pope Leo XIV celebrated his first Mass at the Papal Archbasilica of St. John Lateran, the seat or cathedra of the Bishop of Rome. This moment, known as the taking possession of the Lateran, is a significant and symbolic moment in the early days of a pope's pontificate. It affirms not only his role as universal shepherd, but specifically as the Bishop of Rome. Before heading to the Cathedral of Rome, the Holy Father stopped at Rome's Capitoline Hill, the seat of the city's civic and democratic administration, where he was greeted by the mayor of the city, Roberto Gualtieri. The Pope expressed his hope that Rome will always be distinguished by those values of humanity and civilization that draw their lifeblood from the gospel, and to serve the people of Rome well.
Appena dopo l'elezione, ricordavo ai
Just after the election, I reminded the brothers and sisters gathered in St. Peter's Square that I am Christian with them and Bishop for them. In a special way, today I can say that for you and with you, I am Roman.
e con voi sono romano.
On Saturday, Pope Leo also met for the first time with officials of the Roman Curia and the employees of the Holy See, the Governorate of Vatican City-State, and the Vicariate of Rome. He thanked each and everyone for transmitting the historical memory of a church and for, in their own way, collaborating in the work of the successor of Peter. Even though Pope Leo became Bishop of Rome at the moment of his election, the Holy Father symbolically began his ministry with the liturgy. Addressing the cardinals of the Roman Curia, bishops, priests, deacons, religious and laity of the Diocese of Rome, Pope Leo emphasized the need to listen to others and work in communion.
Da parte mia, esprimo desiderio.
For my part, I would like to express my firm desire to contribute to this great ongoing process by listening to everyone as much as possible in order to learn, understand, and decide things together.
Comprendere e decidere insieme.
The Holy Father also recalled Pope Blessed John Paul I, the smiling Pope, who took possession of the chair of the Bishop of Rome in September 1978.
Io dico ai Romani qualcosa di simile.
I would say something similar to you Romans. I assure you that I love you, that I desire only to enter into your service and to place my own poor abilities, the little I have and am, at the service of all.
Poco che ho e che sono.
After celebrating Mass at the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran, Pope Leo visited the Basilica of St. Mary Major. There, he venerated the icon of Maria Salus Populi Romani, prayed in front of the tomb of Pope Francis, and urged Christians to grow in our devotion to Mary. In Rome, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
And we're learning that Pope Leo XIV met with Cardinal Giovanni Bacciu. The details of the meeting haven't been released, but it comes after Bacciu withdrew from participating in the conclave earlier this month. In 2023, he was convicted by a Vatican court of embezzlement and other financial crimes. Well, the Pope has appointed the next leader of the Pontifical Academy for Life. Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro was named to the position. He was previously the chancellor of the academy. He earned a theology license in moral theology and then completed his postgraduate work in the field of bioethics. And joining us now is Father Thomas Petrie, president of the Dominican House of Studies in Washington, D.C. Father, great to see you again. First off, can you explain what the Pontifical Academy of Life is, for life is?
The Pontifical Academy for Life is one of a number of pontifical academies that are connected to the Holy See. These are not necessarily institutions like a university, when you think of a university. These are sort of offices that gather academics, professors, researchers in a given specialty. So, for example, there's the Pontifical Academy of St. Thomas Aquinas. The Pontifical Academy for Life gathers professors, researchers, academicians to discuss the Church's various and the world's various concerns on the dignity of life, both at conception and all the way through natural death, and as well as other research issues that cross-reference those, like bioethics, like robots in medical care, like artificial intelligence even.
Well, what do we know about this leader who's running this, Monsignor Renzo Pegaro? What do we know about him?
Well, Monsignor Pegaro was first appointed as the Chancellor of the Pontifical Academy for Life in 2011 by Pope Benedict XVI. It was when Pope Francis issued new statutes for the Pontifical Academy that Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia was appointed the president. Monsignor remained the Chancellor and in that working relationship with Archbishop Paglia. We know that he does have a license in moral theology from the Gregorianum, and he also, as you noted, has a PhD in bioethics. I've looked at much of what he's published. He's been very active in publishing on end-of-life care, but also articles on the nature of the soul and how the soul needs to be understood in the human person and how we care, especially for the elderly and for the vulnerable.
What do you think that this appointment of the Monsignor says tells us more about Pope Leo XIV and the direction he's going?
Well, I'm not sure we can say much about the direction. Archbishop Paglia had turned to 80, and so this would have been a natural time for him to cease his work in the Pontifical Academy for Life, just as he ceased his work with the Pontifical Institute of John Paul II last week. And the fact is that Monsignor Pegaro was already the Chancellor, already doing important work for the Pontifical Academy. So I don't see this yet as some sort of radical turn or radical move by Pope Leo XIV. I suspect we'll see some of those in appointments in the weeks and months to come, but I think this isn't it yet.
All right, well, we'll be watching that very closely. Father Petrie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Well, we still have a lot more to come on EWTN News Nightly, including stepping down. The Capitol Hill Chief of Police says he's retiring. Why, he says January 6th is part of the reason. And the violence in Nigeria as Christians are killed in a terrorist attack. We'll tell you why they were targeted. Welcome back. After nearly 4 years, U.S. Capitol Police Chief Thomas Manger says he's retiring at the end of May. He says what drove him was watching the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Manger told the Associated Press, quote, "Some people in this country believe January 6 wasn't that bad. He says his officers know what truly happened." Manger says when he took the job, he was determined to improve the agency. One thing he did, he worked to add positions that are responsible for protecting members of Congress, a job that's expanded as the number of threats against lawmakers have more than doubled from 4,000 in 2017 to nearly 9,000 currently.
And ensuring that we've got the proper protections in place for the members of Congress. This takes additional staff, it takes additional resources, it takes additional investigative capability that we didn't have 5 years ago.
Chief Manger says no department can ever let their guard down. The 70-year-old says he and his wife are looking forward to enjoying his retirement. Members of a bipartisan group of U.S. senators visited Canada this weekend, saying that they want to bolster the relationship despite President Donald Trump's recent attacks. Republican Senator Kevin Cramer joined Democratic Senator Tim Kaine and Amy Klobuchar and others. They met with Prime Minister Mark Carney, who was vowed to pursue a new economic and security partnership with the U.S., but added that the trend of deep integration between the two countries is over due to President Trump. Not to be outdone, on Monday, King Charles III, accompanied by his wife, arrived in Canada for his first visit as the head of state. During his two-day visit, Charles will deliver a speech in Canada's Parliament and celebrate the country's cultural heritage and diversity. In Nigeria, a new report says at least 36 Christians were killed over the weekend in an attack targeting the home village of a prominent bishop. The strike by heavily armed jihadists also kidnapped a priest and several religious sisters. The attack targeted the home village of Bishop Wilfred Anagbi. In March, he testified before Congress about the persecution of Christians in Nigeria, adding that the Nigerian government does little to protect the faithful. For the very latest, let's turn to Douglas Burton, manager of TruthNigeria.com and a former State Department official. Douglas, thank you for joining us. First off, we want to know more about this horrific attack on Sunday, and is there any update on the priests and religious sisters who were kidnapped?
Well, Eric, it's a tragic situation, and the story is in play. Actually, what happened is that there was an attack on Ayondo, which is the home village of the bishop for McCurdy, Wilfred, the Bishop Wilfred Anagbe, who testified at a hearing on March 12th on Capitol Hill, giving a very strong, insightful, and unflinching testimony about Christian genocide in his diocese. And what happened is that Fulani terrorist attacked his home village, Ayondo, on Sunday, and he killed at least 20 people. But that was a conclusion of attacks that began days earlier. So the death count is up to 36.
Yeah, some of the stories that the bishop told that day were just, just horrific. I mean, these people being pulled out of their homes and just killed right there on the spot. Has there been any response from the Nigerian government?
Well, the governor of Benue State is Hyacinth Aliyah, is a former priest, and he has called upon the government to deploy all security services to stop this horrible massacre, series of massacres, actually. But as far as I know, no one has been arrested. The Nigerian military has not been able to corral the marauding groups of killers that have been driving their motorcycles into this area for 2 weeks, going really unimpeded along the roads in northern Benue State. So no, there's no evidence that these attacks will be halted. The perpetrators have not been arrested, so it's a touch and go situation, and hopefully the Nigerian police and the Nigerian military will intercede and push the killers back.
Yeah, I mean, there's been testimony not just here in the United States, but also over in the UK, Europe, and I just can't believe that the Nigerian government just hasn't been able to do anything out there. Does this surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me because I've been following this kind of action for 6 years, and I'm glad that I have a really effective reporting team in Nigeria now. The 11 or so reporters contribute content for TruthNigeria.com. But you see, the problem is the Nigerian army is really overstretched. It's actually too small. It's stretched over a 36-state area, and there is a very deadly insurgency that's been going for 17 years in the northeast part of the country. So more than half of the military is actually drawn down to that. Then you have across the middle belt states, about 8 states in the middle of the country, you have attacks like the one we're talking about here, and it's in several states. And then you have in the far western part of the country, a more recent insurgency popping up there. So the Nigerian military really needs more people, and the police need more recruitment. That has been the position that we have taken at Truth Nigeria.
Well, I tell you what, Douglas, you and your team are doing amazing work. Douglas Burton, manager of TruthNigeria.com and former State Department official, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, a salute to the fallen. The President and Vice President are among those paying tribute to those who died defending our country. Here in the United States, yesterday was Memorial Day, a time when we honored and remembered those who died defending our country. The President and Vice President were among those who paid a visit to Arlington National Cemetery for a somber ceremony. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth joined the President and Vice President. More than 400,000 service members are laid to rest in Arlington Cemetery, just outside the nation's capital. The President paid tribute to them, saying that they were, quote, great, great warriors.
These warriors, and that's what they are, as great, great warriors, picked up their mantle of duty and service, knowing that to live for others meant always that they might die for others. They knew that. They asked nothing for it. They gave everything.
The President also laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Well, we'd like to thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Eric Rosales. Have yourself a wonderful night. God bless y buena suerte.